is there a proof of his existence, an indisputable rationale for his existence?
But everything has a purpose. The coat you're wearing has a purpose. Yeah? The shoes you're wearing has a purpose. Why don't you and I have a purpose? Where are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
I am, it depends. Are you asking about nationality or ethnicity?
Ethnicity.
I'm Russian, but all of my family is Russian.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Orthodox are normally from that area, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, I think the brother was telling you about one of the chapters in the Quran.
Yeah.
It's one of the smallest chapters in the Quran. Chapter 112 is called Surah Al-Ikhlas. Now, what it tells us about God being one, that He's eternal, that there's nothing like Him. He doesn't beget. That means He doesn't have any children, nor is He Himself begotten. He doesn't have any parents, and there's nothing like Him. Now, you see, one small chapter encapsulates what God is in a very beautiful way. Now, you said your parents are Orthodox, you are an atheist. Is there a reason you have adopted atheism as your ideology?
Well,
in short, I don't want the whole life story.
I believe yes, there is a reason. It's just that I believe, in my humble opinion, the belief in God is unfounded, at least from my personal experiences, from the experiences I had in life. So I sort of just questioned it. Okay, He exists, but why should I believe it? Is there any evidence to it? Is there any proof to it? As in, is there any rationale as to why I should?
Yeah.
I didn't find any rationale. I didn't find any logic in it. So I sort of just said, I'm going to distance myself from it until I find rationale. I'm going to be an atheist.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say no evidence, what sort of, do you have any criteria as to what evidence you're looking for? You know, when you're searching for something, then you know exactly what you're searching for, right?
Yeah. Well,
so when you say that, okay, I'm going to seek God, what kind of evidence will convince you?
Well, there are many criteria. The most significant one by far is, are the acts of God, as they are mentioned in the holy books, indifferent of what religion they are, be it Quran, be it the Talmud, a Torah, a Bible, are the acts of God reflective and replicable in reality outside of God's influence?
Yes.
So that's probably the most significant criteria.
But when you're seeking God, what are you looking for exactly? Let's say, how would you know whether you found God or not? Are you looking for are you an empiricist? You're looking for empirical evidence or something else?
I'd say yes, probably an empirical evidence. Is there a proof of His existence, an indisputable rationale for His existence?
Actually, logically, yes, I would say God, a necessary being, has to exist for us to exist. So if I were to ask you this question, where did the universe come from? What would you say? As a person who seeks rational answers, just like you, I would expect a rational response from you. Where did the universe come from? How would you answer that?
I don't know where universe came from.
Okay, so that's appeal to ignorance, or you're just saying I don't know the answer, which is not really an answer. It is you saying I don't know.
It's less so that I do not have a concrete answer as to where the universe came from.
You have any response to that question? Where did the universe come from? Concrete or otherwise? Because I don't know is not really an answer. You know what I mean?
That's a very interesting question. There are many ways to go about it.
Okay, give us your best shot.
Universe came from something.
Which is?
That would be.
What would that something be?
I don't know. It could have evolved from something else. Conceptually speaking, it could have came from a previous state of unrecognizable universe.
Yeah, but that's still something, right?
Yeah.
So where would this go? How far back can you go?
Billions of years back. I have no idea.
Okay. For a person who looks for rational answers, that is a speculation. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So why didn't you apply the same standards to seeking for God rather than... You see what you did there? You are expecting rational response for questions about God. But when it comes to our own existence, in fact, your own existence, you're okay with speculations.
More or less, yeah.
Is that fair?
To answer your question, no, not really. Applying speculation to one.
Good. So at least you're honest, because there are many I've come across many arrogant atheists who would never acknowledge, even after they gave that response, from speculation. Look, there's a principle in science that everything that begins to exist has a cause.
Yeah, I know.
Would you agree with that?
Depends on the thing, but yes,
you look,
majority of things.
Yeah, exactly. You look, in fact, not majority. Everything you look in your existence that you are aware of, all of it has some cause. Yeah, whether it's a fire, boiling water, or it's your birth itself. Yeah, there's always something that precedes it.
Well, I'm a scientist, I know.
Yeah, so you see what I mean? Sorry, what side of scientist are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Molecular genetics. I'm not really.
Oh, very
I'm not really into physics and all of that. Well, I do like to study physics, but it's not my.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm
my
glad
area of
actually.
expertise.
A lot of Russians are well educated in certain of this naturalistic science. But you see, if everything is based on naturalistic science, there are many things which are still unanswered. For example, if I were to ask you, where can you prove to me with empirical evidence of the existence of your consciousness?
We don't. Well, no.
See what I mean?
We don't. For one, we don't really know what consciousness is yet.
No, but we know it exists, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be speaking to me, nor would you be studying science. Yes. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if there are metaphysical things which we already agree and acknowledge that they exist without empirical evidence, then why can't you do the same for the cause of this universe? Which, look, if you don't want to call it God, that's fine, because I think it carries baggage when many atheists bring up the term God, they switch off. And I don't want to do that to you. You want to call it supernatural entity, supernatural being, yes. If you want to call it a designer, intelligent designer, that's fine with me as well. But what I'm saying is that this cause has to not be dependent on the effect. So we believe that the cause of the universe cannot be the universe. Yeah, because the universe didn't exist in the first place. It began to exist at some point. So what we are saying is that it has to be outside the universe. Not only that, it has to have a will and the ability to create. Yeah? And it's, look, if these are if we narrow it down to this as the simplest attributes or the most basic attributes of this necessary being. The reason I use the term necessary is that because the universe wouldn't have existed otherwise. If you went that there is a universe before that and a universe before that, you get this infinite regress, which is again a logical fallacy, isn't it? You cannot have something come out of an infinite regress because it doesn't really apply in real life. There was always a first cause of that. Yeah? So I always give the example of, let's say you had an infinite queue and you were in this really massive infinite library and you were waiting in a queue to get a book. And this queue is infinite. Would you ever get a book?
No.
Why? Because it just goes on and on and on. Never ends. So it has to end somewhere to eliminate this fallacy of infinite regress. This logical impossibility, this impossibility logically.
But that's assuming infinity cannot exist. Do you believe that infinity can exist?
Give me an example of infinite.
I don't know. Well, for one, the existence of the term infinity itself.
Yeah, because infinite is a.
How many numbers are there? Do you know where?
So numbers are abstract, and infinity, the term itself belongs in that number system, which is abstract. It is to denote something which is uncounted, countless, something that is countless, isn't it?
Yeah.
Similarly, I would say zero is an abstract because you cannot see nothing in existence, can you?
It depends on the scale of existence we're talking.
No, nothing doesn't really exist. It's an abstract. It's a construct. It's a concept actually. Yeah? Because I don't know, how would you define nothing? Normally it's denoted by a zero, but how would you actually define it?
Well, we could say that nothing is the absence of everything absolutely. But,
Brilliant.
But I could define it as nothing is another form of something. Because let's look at it that way.
No, we're talking about absolute nothingness. And the answer which you gave,
is it possible?
It's perfect.
Yeah, but is it possible for absolute nothingness to exist?
No, it doesn't exist. That's why it's just a construct.
True. But
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an idea. It's a concept.
But another way to go about nothingness, in my opinion, and just hear me out, is
sure.
A nothing is another form of something. Because let's look at it that way. Let's say we have this pocket of air, right? let's say there's a pocket of air in my hand. You cannot see the molecules, you cannot see the atoms, right? So you assume there's nothing in it.
Yeah, of course.
Once you zoom in, you begin to start seeing things.
Yeah.
And if you begin to zooming in continuously,
we
realize that there is no nothingness in it.
No, we use this in everyday life.
Yeah.
So if you're telling a child like, oh, I've got something in my hand, but then when you open, there's nothing. The child realizes there's nothing. So which is a perfectly good example of an everyday life. But what I was referring to was absolute nothingness, and the definition you gave was spot on. The absence of everything. Absolutely. And this is what absolute nothingness is. So if somebody says that the universe came from absolute nothingness, which doesn't even exist in reality, then that's not an answer either. Because absolute nothingness cannot give rise to something like an atom or a molecule, let alone the entire universe. Yeah? So what is the logical plausibility? What is the logical response to where the universe comes from? Yeah, we would say that it has to be an agency which with at least those minimum characteristics, like the will, the ability to create and so on. And obviously it has to exist eternally, because then it itself cannot be something that is created. You see what I mean? Then again you'll end up with that infinite regress thing, like who created this, who created this? Because the term God itself is not for us, at least as a Muslim, I'm saying that the term Allah or God cannot be created, because by definition it's uncreated, and the first cause, and the first the one who initiated everything. Yeah, so you can say the prime mover, for example. Yeah, we can use all these philosophical terms in order to come to this understanding. But what I'm saying is the term Allah, once you understand that, it means that the one who is like the Surah Al-Ikhlas I mentioned at the beginning, where it talks about the uniqueness and the oneness of God. And it cannot have parents, it cannot have children. Yeah, and this Almighty God is someone who is eternal. Because like I said, it has to be, to be a necessary being. And Allah couldn't have existed otherwise, any other way. Yeah. So it has to be a necessary being which brought about all of this existence. See what I mean? And because if you're seeking logical answers to anything, just like you mentioned that you need to understand it rationally and logically. Logically, it doesn't make sense that it comes from nothing. Logically, it doesn't make sense that it created itself. Sorry, brothers, I can't hear. Sorry. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the only plausible answer is that there has to be an agency which brought about all of this into existence, and it has to be obviously intelligent, have the will, have the ability to create, have to be eternal. You see what I mean? Yeah. So it is logical. It is not something which is illogical to believe in God. Would you agree?
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah?
Yeah, perhaps.
So, I mean, I don't know. What I would want you to do is look into religion, look into Islam in particular. The reason I'm saying Islam in particular is because it gives you the answer from the Quran very succinctly, very clearly, to the point about God and about our existence and our purpose in life as well. What would you say? I know this is a philosophical question many people ask. What would you say is the purpose of your existence or human existence? What do you think is the purpose?
Depends on what sort of purpose are you talking about. Are you talking about core purpose? In which case I'd say there is no intrinsic purpose. Purpose is what you make it.
But everything has a purpose. The coat you're wearing has a purpose. Yeah? The shoes you're wearing has a purpose. Why don't you and I have a purpose?
Well, what is our purpose? In which case I'd like to ask you, in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this is an existential question we all ask, yeah? As a Muslim, I have an answer. I wanted to know your perspective as someone who doesn't believe in God or believes in rationality and naturalism. Yeah?
I wouldn't, well, in which case I wouldn't really say, I might have misspoke at the beginning saying that, rationality, plausibility would be more rational.
Yeah, plausibility.
I'd still say that purpose is ultimately what you make it. So long as you set yourself a goal, so long as you have a mission in life, and so long as so long as you desire to accomplish it and you set out to accomplish it, that becomes your purpose. No matter, it doesn't matter whether it's concrete or abstract.
No, but when I say purpose, what I meant was like, what is the true purpose? Because if the answer to that question was subjective, then For example, a gangster will say that's his purpose in life, to be a gangster. But you wouldn't agree with that purpose, would you? You would object to that purpose.
In most cases, I would.
Exactly. So that's the reason I'm asking, what would be an objective response to this question, this existential question, as to the purpose of humankind or human beings, or you or me?
To live, to perceive the world, to create.
Animals do that. How are you special? Well, they procreate,
Yeah.
they live,
Yeah.
they are aware of their environment.
Well, procreate. I said create. Artistry, perhaps society, organize, all of that.
Yeah. Have you seen a beaver's dam? Have you seen a weaver bird?
Yeah.
Yeah. They do better job than us many times. So look,
Can a beaver perceive abstractness?
you know what? By the way, that response of yours was slightly, like, let's say, accurate, because as human beings we are different from animals. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Because of our rationality, because of this faculty of reasoning, we are able to have a civilization. We are able to write books, poetry, music, all those things. Like beautiful things in our life. However, would that be the purpose of everyone? Because some people, if they don't write a poetry or they haven't done anything significant in their life, and they're only like on a day-to-day basis going about their daily life, would we consider them to be less in purpose than these, let's say, people with skill sets? You wouldn't, because they are still human, aren't they? Yeah? By the way, as a Muslim, we have a response to that question in the Quran. Allah says, forgot the verse now. Yes. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So this is an ayah in the Quran. Allah says that we have created the jinn and the insan, the humankind, to worship Allah. But what does that mean? It means we submit to the will of God. What does that mean? It means the do's and don'ts which He told us in the Quran and of the Hadith as well, which are the sayings and narrations of the Prophet, peace be upon him, is something that we have to abide by. Now, you'd probably ask, what is that? Why should we abide by that? Why not live the life? Because I'm not hurting anyone. I'm going about my daily life in a legal way. I'm a model citizen. Why would I have to obey God? Yeah, you'd probably ask that. The answer to that would be like, what you consider as good or bad is always going to be subjective. Somebody else will always going to disagree with you. Yeah? At least, let's say there are core beliefs which everyone will agree with, but even that, some will disagree. Like, for example, if you look at the current situation in Palestine, yes, most of the world are completely oblivious. Not oblivious, but they're ignoring the fact that babies are being butchered and killed on a daily basis, and they do nothing about it. They even go to the extent of justifying it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So everyone will have some some say in what is good or bad, and they will try to justify it based on their own whims and desires, their own interests, their own agendas. The reason we say that we have to obey Allah and worship Allah is because He is the best arbitrator. He is the best judge who objectively tells us, because He's created us, He tells us what are the do's and the don'ts without any agenda or something based on selfishness or based on your own interest or something. Because He doesn't need us. We need Him. It's the other way around. But you see, in this world, there are people who try to justify because they have certain powers, they have certain, maybe they are rich, maybe they have got some status, and they're able to assert this on other people who are less than them, who has the less capacity, either in financially or in power or whatever it is. And they can always impose their ideas, their agendas on those less fortunate people. Yes, less fortunate in terms of the power and the richness or the finance that they have. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to Almighty God, He's not going to be unjust to anyone. He's going to be just with everyone. Regardless of whether you're a Muslim or non-Muslim, He's going to be just with everyone. Now, one thing that is certain for everyone, regardless of whether they believe in God or disbelieve in Him, is death. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Everyone. This is one certainty no one can deny. Have you ever thought about it? What would happen to you after you die?
I have thought about it, yes.
And
I haven't came up with a conclusive answer, to be honest. I don't know what happens after we die. Be it we go to hell, be it we go to heaven. Perhaps there is no hell. Perhaps there is no heaven. Perhaps we stay forever in this limbo of nothingness.
right, which doesn't exist.
I was expecting you to say that.
I catch on quick. So, okay, let's say if that happens, yeah? Let's say you and I die and we become dust to ashes, depending on how you want to be, treat your corpse when you die. Because some people prefer to be cremated, some people prefer to be buried. Okay, so regardless of that, let's say we both die and that's the end of it. Okay, so neither you lost anything nor I lost anything. Yeah, because whatever life we lived, that has passed, and then we just end either 6 feet under or burning to ashes. Yeah, regardless of that, we come to an end. Neither of us, lost anything in that case.
Yeah.
But now if we flip that coin, yeah, flip the situation. You and I both die, and there really is an afterlife. There really is God and angels and hell and heaven and accountability and the day of judgment. All of that comes true. Who's taking the bigger risk? The one who prepared for it in his life, or the one who never went through any effort to prepare for that afterlife?
Well, naturally, the one who's unprepared will be taking the risk.
Yeah. Now, who's the one who will be better off in that situation? Obviously, the one who prepared for it. Yeah, because that person tried to minimize the risk. See what I mean? Now, that is another rational reason why you should believe in God. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
And don't forget. Imagine that life is eternal, unending. Would you really want to take such a great risk?
Well, I don't know. I'm the kind of person who will stand by his beliefs. If I'm wrong, I'll take my punishment gracefully.
No, but it's not. I don't think taking punishment is graceful in any manner or way. Punishment is supposed to be embarrassing. It's supposed to be a punishment in order for you to realize your mistake. There's nothing graceful about it. So if a judge, puts someone behind bars, that's not graceful.
Well, the punishment itself.
The fact that you have been found to be guilty is the reason you're punished, number one. Number two, it is to show you that what you have done is wrong, and this is how you will be held accountable. And number three, it's not something for you as an individual of morals to be happy about.
Doesn't mean the punishment itself isn't graceful. Sure, it doesn't have to be graceful for me to take it gracefully. If I'm wrong,
you will have no choice, my friend.
Sure.
Yeah. But the question I'm asking you is that a person with your intellect and rationality and your education, would you really want to take that risk?
No, not really. Well, I'm pretty sure nobody in the world wants to take the risk, but it's only a matter of, are they going to admit their wrongfulness? That should be the question.
Even if you admit, the punishment is going to be there.
Sure.
But why would you want to take such a huge risk?
Because I was wrong.
No. You were wrong. You will find that out afterwards. But why I'm asking you about while you're alive, why would you want to take that risk? Why would you not want to minimize the risk? Because an intelligent person would do that, to minimize the risk. For example, if I were to ask you, would you put your family in harm's way? You wouldn't. You would never allow any harm to them, and you would never ever take that risk. If you had a way, you'll try to minimize the risk. But by rejecting God and by rejecting the obedience to God, you're putting yourself and perhaps your family as well in great danger and risk by your own volition. Because on the day of judgment, when you stand in front of God alone by yourself, no one will come to your aid. Doesn't matter how rich you are, how powerful you are in this world, whatever links you have, whatever contacts you have, even your own family won't come to your aid. Because you will be standing alone in front of God, and you will be held accountable for every deed that you have done in this world. And you know what is the biggest sin in Islam?
What is the biggest sin in Islam?
Sorry?
What is it? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's called shirk. Shirk means rejecting Almighty God and or associating partners with Him. Both of them come under shirk. So you're rejecting the Creator, the one who gave you sustenance, the one who blessed you with all this life. Sorry, did you say you were a microbiologist? Molecular
geneticist.
Okay, very good. Molecular genetics. So you know about genetics, right?
Yeah.
We got trillions of cells in our body.
Yeah, a lot.
And within each cell, we have the DNA. And within each DNA, we have got this, which they call the largest word chain. Letter chain. Mm-hmm. Yes? In every cell, in every human being. Yeah? So let me ask you a question before that. If I were to tell you somebody wrote the word, what's your name?
Max.
Max? Yeah, let's say somebody wrote the word Max on a beach. And if I asked you that writing, those letters, and that word just came about by itself, would you believe that?
No.
That's only 3-letter word, right?
Yeah.
Now if you got a trillion letters, let's say millions of letters of words. I don't know how many letters are there, and you probably know better than me. Probably millions?
In a DNA, it depends. There are four nucleotide bases, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine.
Yeah, so the 4 nucleotides, when you string them together...
billions.
Exactly, yeah. So
our genome is extremely long.
That word would be billions of letters.
Yeah.
One word. Now that one word is available in every single cell of our body, which are trillions of cells.
Yeah.
And if you talk about billions of people, and billions of people ahead of us, all of them, they match. That one letter matches in every one of them. If that 3-letter word, Max, on the beach cannot come by itself, where do you think this blueprint in every one of us, which tells us what color eyes your child's eye is going to be? Yeah, based on obviously yours and your partner's their genetics, the genes.
Yeah.
Where did that? Because that looks like a program to me. It's something that replicates in the next generation.
Yeah.
And that program has to come from an intelligent source, right? It cannot just come by itself. It's so unique and so beautiful and so precise in terms of passing on the genes to your progeny, isn't it? So what I'm saying is that there has to be an intelligent designer to write this program in us. Yes, to such position. Yeah. Have you ever seen anybody say that, my brain is now doesn't have the capacity to store information anymore?
I've never really quite heard anybody say that, no.
Yes, and there have been research, people are doing research to use the DNA to store memory.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, you heard of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think they call it the DNA disk or something like that. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that our brains have the capacity to store so much information. Yeah. So even the biggest hard disk or whatever disk they have it'll always have a capacity, isn't it? There's always going to be a limit. But our brains just keep on getting. I think the limit is up to us. How much we can absorb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's something. All of this, it's not a product of chance. Just like I would say that person who wrote Max is not a product of chance. It is a product of an intelligent person, or at least a person with some intelligence, to be able to write a 3-letter word like Max on a beach. You can never come to a conclusion. You cannot infer by that, saying that it just came by itself. Because you're intelligent, it would be an insult to your intelligence if you did that.
Well, there's a high probability it didn't come by chance. There's still a probability that it might have come by chance.
We haven't seen any such thing.
After all,
yeah.
Do you know that when have you ever heard or seen a person when they look up at the clouds, they see a certain shape?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Does it mean that the cloud has that shape, or does it mean, or when you ask some other person and they look at the same cloud, they see something else? Does it determine the objective shape of the cloud?
No. In that, this is comparing apples and oranges, and I'll tell you why. Because that shape determination or your assumption of that shape is based on your observation, nothing to do with the cloud itself. So what you perceive with your observation, it reflects on you rather than the cloud. The cloud, look, the cloud is going to be the same, but 100 different people will have 100 different perceptions of that cloud, isn't it? So what does it reflect? That the cloud hasn't changed, but your perception has. But what I'm talking about is something which is objective and is reasonable to see, and to even by, like you said, as a scientist, you would be able to observe this in everyone, and then come to a conclusion that they all have the same kind of sequence of the DNA. Yes, it might not be the same in every individual, but at least you see the sequence, that long word of billions of letters. Yeah.
In which case, allow me to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
You said that that billion-letter word, it couldn't have come by chance, right?
Yeah.
Say in genetics we have something called a de novo mutation, a mutation that isn't seen in the parents of an offspring anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
It's completely new, hence why it's called de novo.
Hence it's called a mutation.
Hence it's called a mutation.
Yeah.
But say an offspring has that mutation, right? That single letter change. And that mutation causes lethal cancer or lethal kidney cysts, right?
Yeah.
That arise
or some anomaly in your body
spontaneously,
yeah.
right? Has that mutation came by chance? Does it have a purpose?
I think it has a reason. So a geneticist or a doctor who is expert in that field will be able to tell you why that happened. Yeah. They might not have an answer now, they might have an answer later. But what you just mentioned, that example is a good example of something which is an exception to the rule. Do you agree?
Yeah.
The reason you have that genetic disease, whatever it is an exception to the rule, and it's not the rule. And a healthy person wouldn't have that anomaly. The reason you identified the anomaly shows you that's an exception to the rule. The example I gave you about every single cell in your body, in every human being, has this certain number of, letters, which are billions, like you said. Yeah? And this is something we see in everyone. And that is the rule. That's not the exception. And that program, which is available in everyone, which is absolutely key to passing on your genes to your progeny, is a program which cannot come by chance. The exceptions can come by chance. Yeah? Because, maybe there's something in the environment which changed that. Could be anything. I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor, neither a geneticist. But at least logically, I can tell you there's an exception. You agree?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying that program in everybody's body, which is a rule, which every cell in your body has, it cannot come by chance. Do you agree?
Yeah. There's a high probability that it come by chance. In any case, I've got an exam tomorrow.
Of course.
I need to go revise.
But it was really nice speaking to you, Max.
Yeah, it was really nice speaking to you as well. What's your name, by the way?
My name is Hashim. And our channel is Dawahwise. We have just
I've seen
recorded
your
this.
channel like a couple of times.
So, look into it. Like I said, you seem like a person who has got an open mind. Even though you call yourself an atheist, I personally think you're an agnostic.
Perhaps. I don't know.
Because every time you use the term plausibility, possibility, it shows that you are not saying for certain there is no such thing, which means you keep your options open, which only implies that you are an agnostic, which means you sit on the fence because you're not sure yet. Yes? And I pray to God, Allah Almighty guide you to the truth. Yeah? And this is a prayer for the goodness of you rather than, putting you down or mocking you or anything like that. And that wouldn't be our purpose. Our purpose is to convey the message. We say the guidance is always in the hands of the Almighty. Yes?
Yeah.
So, have you got a copy of the Quran?
I do believe I have a copy of the Quran somewhere, yes.
Shall I give you a copy if you want?
That's fine. I have it somewhere among my bookshelf. I just need a pinpoint of it.
Okay, no problem. So, do you live in London? Or?
Yeah, I live in London.
You live, So, we are here on Sundays. You can come and have a discussion. Maybe read the Quran and then come back with questions, if that helps. Yeah?
Perhaps I will.
All right,
Anyway,
Max.
yeah.
You take care.
It's been a nice
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Yes, have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Make dua Allah gives brother Hidayah. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.